Kaboom. All right. Let's see where this thing goes. Got to wait for it to tell me that it's connected and whatnot. Dun, dun, dun. All right, we are on air. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the security rabbit hole to another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raph. No James today, off doing James things, but I do have a fun roundtable. We are definitely -1, Mr. Brandon Dunlap, as is customary for middle of a Friday. Brandon had a customer emergency he had to go attend to, something about swatting spiders or something. I don't know. But we have a great consolation prize. I'm here. And we've got these three guys here. Familiar faces, I hope, to some of you. I'm going to start top right and start with you, Mr. Tiller. Good morning.
Hey.
Or no, sorry. Good afternoon. I don't even know what the hell time it is.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever, right? Hey, thanks for having me on again, Raph. It's awesome. I appreciate it. Really, it'll be fun conversation to be had here, I think.
Maybe fun. Sure. I like fun. I like that's a good word. And below you in this wonderful Foursquare world is the one and only recovering analyst, Mr. Anton Chuvakin.
I think we managed to train the AI that I am the reformed analyst. I Googled myself the other day and Google said reformed analyst. And that's how Tim introduces me on our podcast, which kind of made me think that Tim and me managed to teach the AI that I am a reformed analyst, which struck me as quite interesting. It was completely organic. But in any case, yes, I am a reformed analyst, and I'm not sure why I'm invited here. I don't have any special magic anymore because I'm reforming, but very happy to have fun together.
I have you on for comedic relief oftentimes, Anton, so it's okay.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's why I'm here.
And to your left and directly underneath me here is a rare sighting of the one and only Mr. Matt Shufeldt. Hey, bud.
Hey, man. It's great that we finally got a topic and some time for me to come on. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for including me.
I feel like you're coming to us from your mountain chalet.
Close. It's not quite a chalet. It's a cabin up between Blackhawk and Netherland.
Those are two places I'm not familiar with. So that sounds awesome. You do have internet there, so can't be that remote, but all right. So, all right, guys, for those of you hanging out with us and those of you listening later, this topic is, well, the role of the vCISO. As a lot of our topics on this podcast go, this started with a conversation that somebody posted on LinkedIn. It evolved, it spiraled out of control, and here we are. So where do I want to start? I want to start with, I've been a vCISO-ish for a while. Jim, you've been an actual CISO and a vCISO. Matt, you the same. Anton, you've advised them people, so you may as well have been a vCISO. Give me your 30-second hot take on the role of the virtual CISO today. Matt, starting with you.
All right. Thank you. So I would say the vCISO can actually be engaging with a client a few different ways. One, you're going to run into clients that actually don't have a CISO, and they need either a fractional CISO or a CISO that's going to step in and run for their program, sometimes for a very long time, sometimes for a short amount of time. But oftentimes as well, vCISOs are actually hired by CISOs, either because the CISO themselves don't have a certain set of expertise in security is a very broad area, right? Like they may not have the specific area they need or the specific business knowledge that they need, or they just don't have the capacity to drive all of their initiatives. So they will hire a vCISO to come in and help lead their teams through that, strategic programming, builds, those types of things. And then I would say probably the last one that I see the most frequently is a CIO or a CTO has a vCISO come in, mentor, help plan for, et cetera, more junior security executive they want to elevate, or somebody who's new in role as a CISO. So those are the three that I see the most often.
That's a hell of a hot take. Okay. Good one. Anton, over to you, and Jim, we'll save yours for last.
So mine would be kind of more mundane. I think that if you can't get a real CISO for whatever reason, budget, culture, size, get a fractional one. Like it's really not very profound, but that's all the encounters I had. I think this whole executive mentoring angle is there, and I think I've in Gartner, of course, offered something very vaguely similar, like an executive body. I forgot what it was called. But to me, that it's still really in the, can you afford a CISO? No, our budget for a CISO is 30K. Okay, you're not getting a CISO. What are you going to get? A virtual CISO or a fractional CISO? That
I like
sounds
how you,
really kind of it, really.
I like how you said not a real CISO. So this is the Pinocchio of
Well,
CISOs.
dedicated. Yeah, I mean, not a dedicated CISO, fine.
So
I mean, like a
Raph,
real,
I like
yeah,
that you
but it's
still pick
still
on
like,
terminology all the time.
I still do. Phrasing is
Yeah.
important. Uh, speaking of real, Jim, yeah, you're last. So what do you got?
Well, I guess one of the benefits of being last is you get to build off what these other two fine gentlemen said. Matt said it perfectly. Those are the three dynamics I think we always see the most. And Anton's dead spot on, right? Is you sometimes you just can't afford it. You're a small company, but you need a level of guidance. You need people with bruises and cuts and have stepped in potholes before, know where all the booby traps are. And so it's helpful to have someone who has those scars to come in and help you, but maybe you just can't afford it. But I would say is just real quickly, there's a more than just that economical swing. Is if you look at, you have consulting in one area, which is like out tasking, and you have managed services, which is outsourcing, and you can hire somebody. These are three different delivery modes that you can exist within. And vCISO kind of swings around almost like a Venn diagram. So you can apply it in the ways that Matt said, the three primary ones, which by the way, those are perfect, by the way, Matt.
Thank you.
And so there's an economic component, but those economics kind of play out to where you would use a consultant, but also have the traditional approach from a managed services that get that predictability. And then you have the best of having an employee because of that fractional component Anton was speaking to, is you're able to rely on this person showing up once a week, once a month, once a quarter. They become part of the leadership team. So it's more than just not being able to not afford. It's more than just those three pieces. It's the entire value proposition of economics, whether it be culture or posture or just straight up money.
And Jim,
Okay, so-
I love how you said that, and you can transition between those different ones in the exact same
100%.
client.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. I like where you guys are going with this. I'm gonna add my color to this and say, all right, hold on though. That last part, Jim, the somebody that comes in a couple hours a week to become part of your leadership team. I mean, look, in a world where there is no war or famine, that sounds like a great thing. Does it actually work that way? Because somebody that shows
would
up
they
for a
rather
couple
they not
hours a
come?
week,
Would they rather they not come at all?
Can I add something real quick? I'm
Okay,
sorry.
you go ahead.
yeah,
sorry.
no.
So I'm
While I
actually
think about that.
yeah. So first of all, I think I'm a little bit unique because one, I'm a CISO for a global company, and I do vCISO work, right? So kind of rent it out, lack of a better term. Okay, a little bit. And I will tell you, is I spend arguably more time as part of other leadership companies in some cases, right? So when I was just a vCISO, I was only spending time with leadership of the leadership community. We spent a lot of time together, and I work with CISOs because as a vCISO, as Matt pointed out, you can spend time helping to fill the gap or mentor when there's already existing CISOs. And you find out that a lot of times they're not part as much often with the leadership team. So there's something different about somebody being there all the time and somebody being there part-time. So you want to capture that and move forward. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No. I just wanted to add on to what you said. I'm bad at timing pauses sometimes, so I raise my hand. So one of the things I would say is normally too, when you're spending a couple of hours a week, you don't start spending a couple of hours a week. You actually have like a bake-in time, like a ramp-up time that leads to a couple of hours a week. So you get familiarity and then you phase in. And I've actually had multiple clients where I had a large amount of time with them. I ended up helping them hire a security leader, mentor that security leader, get them promoted. And then I shifted to the couple of hours a week because I'm still a valuable resource for that leader, but I don't need to be in there day to day. And so there are a lot of different factors that lead to how much time you're spending with clients.
Okay. So I've thought about it. There are instances where so the question is part-time advice better than no advice? Yeah, probably. I think the answer is yes, but here's where I think this started for me and why I wanted this conversation is look at LinkedIn and how many people are advertising as I'm available to be your virtual CISO. And great, awesome. That sounds fantastic. Look at their credentials for 2 minutes. Most of us in this chat will say the one, if I pointed at the ones that I looked through, you are not qualified, sir, madam, to do this job. The problem is the people they're marketing to don't know the difference.
Yep.
Mhm.
So are they better off getting no advice or bad advice?
So
Wait,
I feel
so
like
that's a
you're
deeper rabbit
go ahead,
hole
Anton,
here,
sorry.
right?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to
deeper
raise my
rabbit
hand.
hole.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like it's a deeper rabbit hole question, right? If is a bad vCISO better than none? And that's that becomes question of a cost. But I almost tempted to say that bad anything is usually worse than none, because if you're getting bad advice, you'd
Yes.
rather you not get any advice.
100%.
So like, yeah, not sure what's controversial about this take. If I were a firewall engineer, a firewall admin for 1 year, and that's all my security experience, and next I advertise as a vCISO on LinkedIn, then I'm not doing it right.
Yeah. Can I just build off of that real quick? So, by the way, masterful work of working part of the name of the podcast into what you said. But you just dropped a rabbit hole right in there. That was brilliant.
Anton's getting good at this.
So you actually hit on, I think, the biggest problem in this industry related to vCISO wrap is that if you remove assuming intent, which in security we're not always great at doing, but let's remove assuming intent. You have a whole set of people following behavior that they see role modeled on LinkedIn and other places. So they're like, oh, well, this person is representing themselves as a vCISO. They've never been a CISO. I can do that too. I've been in security for 20 years. And the whole thing is part of it is them following that role model. Part of it is assuming that being a CISO, and there's tongue in cheek jokes about this, there's memes about this, is really easy. It's not really easy to do well. It's very hard to do well. And so people will make that natural assumption, and they'll say, hey, I've been a pen tester for 15 years. I'm a great pen tester. I can totally advise clients. I know where clients go wrong all the time. And what I'll tell you is that is just a really, really bad way to think of something, because could I walk into OWASP, which, I've done many times, could I walk into any other presentation setting and be able to talk about offensive security? Yes. Would I represent myself as an offensive security expert? No, I would not. It's the same type of thing. So these folks are actually hurting themselves, and maybe not even knowingly, and they're potentially hurting their clients because they don't have the right experience to give the right advice. And it could actually put the client in a worse position than if they didn't get the advice at all, to Anton's point.
There's a lot to unpack here. I want to comment on a few things. First of all, being a vCISO is actually quite difficult because there's a lot of things that you're not able to get your hands wrapped around because you're there fractionally. So you're asked to do things. So there's a lot of, there is the sort of darker side of it. It does become a very difficult job. Not everybody can do it. Now let's put a positive or a different spin on what you were saying, Raph, is I would argue is that shows that there's a demand for vCISO, right? Everybody's trying to lurch in that direction. And the part about consumers they don't know the difference is that is without a doubt the number one problem that we have today. Full stop. Is I've run into a lot of vCISOs that are, to Anton's point, fixing a firewall one day, and now they're gonna, advise you on, your whatever AI strategy. So it's a I don't think it's a problem that's unique to vCISO within the cybersecurity community. Yep. Let's just put it that way. Okay. Yep. But I do think it is an indicator that the demand is there. I mean, we actually have companies who have developed platforms and solutions just for vCISOs kind of thing. Yep. In which ironically, I think that's almost contributed to that a little bit because now anybody can run that platform. And so it's a very mixed environment. And so I think you have to know enough about what you're buying so you vet it out correctly.
Hey, Jim, do you find that Jim, do you find that it's awkward or even a sensitive topic to try to advise people around this? I do sometimes, just because I know some of the people out here doing this, and they're good security professionals and they're good people, but they're just not positioning themselves correctly. And they're not always open to that type of advice. Do you have like a technique that you use to try to help people realize that without making it seem classist?
No, because I've tried in the past and it just burns so bad. Sometimes, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
So, I just say, listen, here's what you should be looking for. And if you find it, rock on, go knock it out. But I think it's very difficult because it's very hard to deliver that message without coming off as egocentrical and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but that reminded me of the whole MSS MDR conundrum, where people pointed out that the people who, and I'm not trying to shift topics to MDR, it's just a useful analogy, hopefully, where people who would benefit from MSSP the most are able to judge good from bad the least. So it sounds like there's a very, very similar dynamic here. People who need the fractional CISO the most are least qualified to judge good from bad. And that's how do we fix it?
Hmm.
And
That's
I'm
an
gonna ask question, run
amazing
away.
statement.
I know my approach, right?
That's an amazing statement.
It is.
Wow, that dead
And it's
spot
true
on.
though, right?
It's absolutely
100%.
true.
It's
This is
true, but
100%.
like, what do we do?
So I think there's a fair, I don't know. I don't, without going back to Matt's classes comment, I don't know there's a whole lot generically we can do. I think the idea of having some, God, I hate saying this, some base level of certification that's based on practical and experience would work as a baseline. I know, Jim. I'm hearing myself say this and I hate it already.
I've known you for years, man. You're not supposed to.
Yeah, I know. But what's the other option here? Because what I'm concerned about, all right, is there's tons of new regs coming, and so many organizations that have absolutely no security program, no security tech whatsoever to speak of, are suddenly under the impression that, crap, I need a CISO. Okay, that person can be a virtual CISO for me. Oh wait, they're like $100 an hour. I can afford that. I can do 5 hours a week. Done, right? Or 5 hours a month or whatever. And are we causing harm here in the royal we? Are we causing harm here in the industry by trying to look? I can't it's hard to make a case that adding security leadership to any place is a bad idea unless you're adding someone that doesn't understand their requirements, their business, their culture, their ability to buy anything. Like, then you've got, how much can you actually do for a couple hours a month?
Well, and I think you're fixating on the one example. So a lot of times, and Jim, I'm curious on your mileage on this. A lot of times for engagements for my colleagues and I, we actually end up helping clients get to that point of understanding their requirements, understanding their pressures, understanding their programmatic drivers, making sure they don't have shiny tool syndrome and how they're going to get different technologies. Like, we actually help build that within clients, but you can't do it in the 2 hours a month example. I agree with that, but there are a lot of different engagement models. And what I would say is, back to the main point, and Anton, you did say that beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just nonstop advocacy and thought leadership, trying to help people understand the difference. And in like a lot of things in security, it's going to feel like a losing battle half the time. But it doesn't mean we should stop. We should try to keep pointing out the differences. And something that I try to do is I try to point out the positive examples and say, if I'm talking to somebody, I'll say, hey, so listen, if you work with me or my colleagues, you'll notice we've all been CISOs multiple times. We have that experience. I'm not saying you need to use us, but whoever you use, please just go look into their background and make sure they have the appropriate background to help you. Because that's all
fired at least twice.
What's that?
Make sure they've been fired at least
Fired
twice.
Yeah.
If I may build on what Matt's saying here is, first of all, I like the term advocacy. And yes, showing up 2 hours a month is not really at the core of what we're talking about. I see that more as a almost like a board level quarterly advisory component, which brings me to the next sort of dimension to where I think Matt started was, I will tell you this. I spend a lot of my time telling my client, no, don't do that. Right. Because there's a sort of, I'm going to call it what I think, and I may be upsetting some people here, but if you don't have a number of years, these scars, right, you haven't stepped in enough holes and, enough poop scraped off the bottom of your shoe and pain. Okay. Because you get to the point where you realize that to be truly effective and to be pragmatic, you just can't keep throwing things at the wall and say, oh, well, you got to have this, you got to have this, you need to be ISO certified. And I think there's a lot of people who think that's what being a CISO is, when in reality is your, I got
I'm raising my hand because I've got a question now. Now that you said that, all right. So this is the argument that I got from, and I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying I believe this. I'm simply saying this is a point I want to make sure we address. The argument against having a consultant do anything, vCISO or otherwise, is there's no accountability. They came in, make some recommendations, they're gone. It's somebody else's job to then make it work.
Okay,
wait,
hold
but
on.
vCISO is not exactly a consultant, though. It's a deeper relationship.
100%.
In theory.
That's the fractional point. That's what I said earlier. That first
Yes.
circle is consultancy, is out tasking. Okay, a vCISO is getting the best of an employee because there's connective tissue that is implied by coming in, building a team, providing that advice, but sticking with it. So one of the reasons why I really like being a CISO from being what I've done in my past is because now I get to live with my decisions, good, bad, or indifferent. Okay. And I think that's what a lot of CISOs actually enjoy as part of their day job, who are now becoming vCISOs, because they're kind of getting the best of both worlds. It's actually, I would actually argue that a really good vCISOs want to be there with you as you go through it, because we know what it's like to be on the end where somebody comes in and says, yep, you need to do this, this, and this. See ya. Give me my check. Everybody understands the bad part about consulting in that way. Yeah. And I think that's why this fractional component actually makes a lot of sense. And there's customers that go, well, I just need you for, 3 months. I'm like, okay, but the advantage is you can get me for longer.
Then it's a consultant CISO in this case, right? Not
100%.
fractional.
Well, and if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to touch on a couple of those points too. I agree with everything you just said. One, I will disagree with your point, Raf, even in a consulting setting, that there's not accountability. If you want to keep a client and you want to continue to grow within a client and you want to continue to get business because clients refer you, it's your living. Like if you're doing that for a living, there's accountability there, even more so than sometimes. And I think, Jim, I'm sure you've been in this position too. I've followed another CISO who had no accountability, like as an actual in-house CISO, and clearly that person wasn't accountable. So assuming the in-house exec is highly accountable and the person that's coming from the outside is not accountable, I think I would just break that down a little bit. It's all about professionalism. It's all about the credibility of the individual and how the organization works with them and the mechanics. So I would just kind of put that aside. And I don't think anybody's doing this, but I just wanted to make sure I'm super clear. I don't want to put even consultancy in a bad light, because there are consultants, yes, that just want to come in, deliver things and leave. But there are other consultants who actually do take a lot of pride in how they're actually integrating in. And I think it's helping our clients understand what to use when, to Jim's point. That's really crucial. Because frankly, there could be topics that I could speak intelligently on. But let's say that Anton and I were directly connected in our network, and he was in a position to do consulting on a topic he's an expert on, which there are a number of them. I would be doing the client a favor if I said, hey, I can talk to you about this, but this isn't a CISO type of conversation. This is a specific conversation on this topic. Let's get this subject matter expert. Let's bring him in. And I think if we can break down that kind of classist view once again, they're just different jobs. It's like comparing architects and engineers. It's like, okay, well, I'm an architect, so I'm better. No, it's just a different job. An engineer and architect are both valuable. You need both. So I think that's another thing that we just need to break down as a community.
Yet at the same time, this is not a podcast on can't get a CISO? Just hire a consultant for a couple hours. We don't say that. This is a podcast on fractional CISO model, which to me is like sure, I think I will support the speech in support of consultants, but ultimately we're not advocating for don't get a CISO, get a consultant instead. We're suggesting a fractional CISO, which to me is a not so subtle difference in the
My
model.
point, Anton, is you can vacillate between the two, the same
Yes.
person.
Yeah, fair point. Yes,
And I just don't want to
for
discredit
sure.
one versus the other. They both have their benefits and their drawbacks. That's all.
Actually, those fractions of CISO subscription have a minimal duration, because I just made up the question. I have no idea. I haven't seen the contracts for this, but do you have to join for a year? Because admittedly, if you say, hey, can I hire somebody as a CISO for 2 months and then not have a CISO, the most of us would react with like, no, that's stupid. You're not going to get the benefits. But fractional CISO implies long-term relationship, right?
I've seen the short ones mostly that are mentor related, as an example.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
Some that are very have demanding strategies that maybe, say, for example, like digital transformation, where there's a demand for that guidance, but because there's so many moving parts, to bring somebody in full time is just doesn't make good economics. So there's times when the economics kind of override that point that Raph was bringing up about accountability. I will tell you that, obviously I know a number of vCISOs out there, and a lot of times they just go, you can have me for a year for less than half of what you would pay somebody. And then so sometimes if you can get past that $ number and say, look, this is an economic solution, and you get all these benefits like I alluded to earlier. So I guess honestly, perfect world would be sort of annualized, but those are not super common. But once they start happening, then the client usually signs on for a multiple year kind of thing.
Yeah, and you end up like renewing for years.
Yeah,
it does happen. And the other scenario that I'd add on to the one you had, Jim, is the bridge scenario. So I've actually had an in-house CISO who was moving on to another CISO role, help the company that he was working for hire me to be the bridge for their period of looking for another CISO, keeping the program running, making sure things are functioning well. And that's normally like a 2 to 3 month type of engagement.
Okay, that's good. How do we address? Are we adequately addressing the needs? Because lately I've been sort of thinking a lot about the down market problem, right? Where security has a massive down market problem. We
down market
companies
meaning like smaller companies don't know what to do, right? Okay.
Yeah, and this kind of goes along with those that need the help the most don't know how to ask for it and don't know what to get.
Yes.
Right. So the companies that I think would benefit from, and I'm not talking like 10-person company, I'm talking 100, 200 people, right? Where they have tech, there's a significant amount of support that technology either gives them a technical advantage or supports the company or whatever, right? Every company is a tech company now. And so you need somebody in a leadership position in security. What are the requirements for that so that we can keep the role meaningful, the output valuable? And so we're not just, I would hate to have it just be another checkbox on a compliance list. Do you have a CISO, fractional or otherwise? Yep. Right. How do we make sure that it's providing value to the organizations that need it in the way that they need it? Because I don't think that there's a super easy cookie cutter for that, right? Because yes, every organization is slightly different, but a lot of them look very similar if you squint. Like, how do we solve that?
Ooh. Well, I'll take it. I'll take a swing at that one. Okay. So I'm going to say a lot of things that could really get me in trouble. So first of all, I think is we have to understand that there's a great deal of personality and perception here when we talk about this. So what you're talking about is how do you get value to that? Is it goes back to my statement about being pragmatic and sort of understanding is what was the intent and interpretation of, say, multiple regulations. And it goes back to my statement about having bruises and scars and broken bones is you've been through all that. You've been through the grinder a few times. So it's the point that small, medium-sized companies may not know the right question to ask or know what they're looking for, but they need it the most. It is up to, frankly, ethical vCISOs and security experts to say, I know how to help you. And Matt made a perfect example of that when he said, best thing I can do for you is recommend the right person to talk to. Because we have to sort of shift our thinking in some ways that, one, it is an underserviced environment, small, medium businesses, for all the things that we've mentioned. Second of all, is that as we all, tide raises all ships, right? So as we begin to improve security for everybody, so there's a little bit of a social component of this as well, which is why I get a little bit frustrated when you see like fake vCISOs and stuff like that. So I don't think I think the answer to your question is very difficult. I also think that the solution is not necessarily what you want to hear. And that is, it's up to us and the security community to really kind of help people get through these things, but make it actionable, make it pragmatic. Because you start walking in a small company and go, waving your hands and got to create your ISO framework over here. It's just, that's horse hockey. But you have to make it something where it's obtainable and they can see how it translates to their business. Not just, you have to protect yourself in the old FUD argument. You have to know how to have the conversations and orientate things in a way that they can adopt in a meaningful way. Otherwise, they're going to learn to not like security.
Good.
And we
so
just
then
keep facilitating the same problem.
Follow-on question. Because I was gonna let somebody else talk, and then you said what I was thinking, and I'm gonna ask you to follow on. Does that mean that you're looking for somebody with specific domain level, maybe specific market level expertise, somebody that has healthcare experience, somebody that has a financial services background, or can we have generalists?
So
Matt,
I love that you went there. So you want to hear a consultant thing? It depends. It really does. It depends on the composition of the team that's hiring you in.
Matt went there.
You really need to understand where their gaps are, and having that conversation with them is very important. I think domain level expertise. So if we want to break it up almost like verticals and horizontals, there's going to be like specific technology and governance backgrounds, et cetera. And then there's going to be actual vertical backgrounds for healthcare, DIB, et cetera. In certain scenarios, control frameworks translate, a lot of things translate. If you can get to the context, you can definitely help clients in a lot of different scenarios as a vCISO or fractional CISO. But if you're actually expected to lead a strategy and you don't have the background to do that, then it's going to be a serious problem. In my head, when I was thinking about it, when Jim, you were talking, I was actually going to say before Raph asked his question, I'm like, hey, can I make this even more complicated? Because in your example, Raph, I immediately thought of like a product company, right? A product company that has product management needs. They're trying to move things forward. Well, if you went and got a fractional CISO who had a pure governance background in like financial services and no product management knowledge and no background there, that person's not going to effectively be able to drive a strategy for a product management company in a way that's going to make security well loved, to Jim's point. They're going to look at it as like, oh, you're just trying to stop me from doing all these things. You're not trying to actually help me secure as we advance our company. And so I just wanted to add on to that.
So let me add on to your add-on to the 2-cent add-on is let's go back to the premise of the premise of the question, or the frame of the question around basically small to medium businesses.